One of the easiest composite images to create is where the camera is in a fixed position, and then we just change the subject matter or lighting to suit. It requires no complicated selections or masking techniques. Okay, let's try this technique, but it will work completely non-destructively using smart objects. I have 4 images here, shot by the photographer Greg Elms. I'll just shift click so we've selected all, and then we'll open them into Adobe Camera Raw. Now we do have some settings that have already been applied to these images. Okay, so we can just start as they are. The first image we've got is what's called the background plate. We don't have any of the subject matter in here, it's just the location. In the second image we have a small light applied. I'll just zoom in so you can see that light over there in the right hand corner of the image. We're just lighting up this part of the sign here, and you can see the trailing lead leading to the power source there. And in the third image we have our model. I'll just again zoom in so you can see the model, Luna. Okay, and she's being lit by 2 light sources, and again all of the information and tripods and lighting stands are all in position here, but we're going to be able to remove those quite easily because in the background plate image we have all of the information that sits behind this information. And the final image is an exposure of the sky. Okay, so we've dropped down the exposure here just so we get a nice clear detail of this sky. Okay, so we're just going to select all images by clicking on the select all button here, and I'm going to choose to open these as objects because we are going to work non-destructively. Hold down the shift key if you don't see this button, if yours says open images, or alternatively just click on the workflow options and check the open in Photoshop as smart objects option here. Okay, so with all 4 images selected we're going to open them into the main editing space. This will take a minute or two for Photoshop to process these 4 raw files into smart objects inside the main editing space of Photoshop. Okay, so here's the first one coming in now, and the next 3 will follow shortly. Okay, so we have all 4 project files open. I'll just double click on the mini bridge to collapse that, and I'm just going to zoom in on these images. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut. I'm going to hold down the command key on a Mac, that would be the control key on a PC, the space bar, and I'm also going to hold down the shift key. This makes sure that all 4 images are zoomed in together. Okay, now here's my background plate image, and we'll use this as the base layer in this composite file. I'm going to move over to the next one in the stack, and this one is the L8, which is illuminating the sign here. I'm just going to select the move tool by pressing the V key on the keyboard, and then I'm going to click and drag up to the background plate tab here, and then move back into the image. I'm just going to hold down the shift key to align these 2 images together. This really is the secret to creating this simple composite, is to make sure that the tripod is in a fixed position. It's best if you use a remote release on the camera and try to avoid knocking the tripod during the individual exposures. Okay, and now we're coming up to the next one, which is Luna. Okay, and we're going to, again with the move tool, just click and drag onto the background plate tab, move into the image preview, hold down the shift key and let go, and that will align Luna into this composite file. And the final image here, we're just coming up over to the I'll just make sure I can see that one. It's the sky tab here, and we're just going to, again with the move tool, click and drag that onto the smart object background plate, and we've come down over to Luna here, so just hold down to the shift key and let go. Okay, so now you can see our 4 layers, the sky, Luna, the L8 and the background plate, all in sequence here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add layer masks to all of the top 3 layers. So I'm just going to hold down the Alt key on a PC, that's the Option key on a Mac, and click on the Add Layer Mask. So we've got a completely black layer concealing this sky on this top layer. And then we're going to select the next layer down by clicking on it, and again holding down the Alt or Option key, add another layer mask that's filled with black. Okay, and the third one, click to select the layer, again holding down the Alt or Option key, clicking on that layer mask. So now we've cut down to just down the background plate here. We're going to start revealing elements from each of the top 3 layers now in order to create the composite file. So we'll select the mask on the top layer. Okay, click on the mask icon to make sure this is the active component, and then we'll select the brush tool in the tools panel. Okay, press the B key. Okay, I'm going to set the opacity to 100%. I'll just use the scrubby slider, or you can click on the little arrow there and wind that out to 100%. Alternatively, just press the 0 key on the keyboard. Okay, my flow is also set at 100%. Now I'm going to set the default colors. I just press D on the keyboard and I should have white as the foreground color now. And now I can change the size of the brush. Okay, I'm using a 500 pixel brush with the hardness set to 0 here. Okay, and we're just going to brush in the sky from this top layer. Okay, and as you can see, we don't really need any accuracy, and it doesn't really matter if I tip over into the side of the bridge and darken some of those bright edges there. Okay, so just a couple more brush strokes. We should now have got all of that sky into that image. If you're unsure whether you've got all of the image, you can just option click on that layer mask just to make sure that there's no gaps or holes with some of the old sky left there. And again, just click on the image thumbnail to come back to the composite view. So now we've got a composite of the best sky and the background plate in the same image. We're now going to select the lunar layer, and we're going to click on the layer mask here. Now I can't actually see lunar. I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to use the command spacebar, control spacebar, and just zoom in to where lunar should be appearing here. Okay, it's difficult to paint lunar in if I can't really see her, so I'm just going to show you a technique where we can do this quite easily. I'm going to hold down the Alt key on a PC, the Option key on a Mac, and also the Shift key. With both of those keyboard modifier keys held down, I'm just going to click on the layer mask, and this will put a rubylith overlay over here. Now I'm going to hold down the Shift key and disable this mask, and now I can see where lunar is on this layer. Okay, now I've still got the brush tool selected, and I've got white as the foreground color, and I'm just going to paint to reveal lunar onto this layer, and maybe some of the light that's surrounding her around her feet. I'm trying to avoid those lighting stands because we don't really want those in the image. Okay, now it's just a simple case of just clicking on the image thumbnail and also shift clicking on the layer mask, and see the light stands now have magically disappeared. Okay, and we're going to now reveal the L8 sign. Okay, so we're just going to click on this layer mask here, and we can use the same technique as that we used before, which is to Alt Shift or Option Shift on a Mac, click on that layer mask to reveal the overlay, and then click on the Shift key and click on the mask a second time to reveal the position of that light. Now I'm going to zoom in. This one's a little bit trickier just because of the proximity of the lead, the electrical cord running along here. So I'm just going to reduce the size of the brush using the open square bracket key, and I'm just going to paint over in order to reveal some of the light that this light source is shining on this part of the wall here, and also on the floor. Okay, and we're just going to come and approach that light stand. Okay, and being careful to avoid the lead. Okay, and again shift click to switch off the layer mask, and also click on the image to reveal there. If we zoom in, we might see that we've just caught or clipped one of the legs of that lighting stand. So I'm just going to with black as the foreground color, so I'm just going to press the X key in order to make black as the foreground color, and I'm just going to drop the opacity down to 50%, decrease the size of the brush, and then paint over several times just to fade that light in a little bit more gently, and also to hide this lighting lead that's running along the floor there. Okay, and that's effectively done now. Okay, so I'll just Command 0, Control 0 to fit on screen, and we can see now we've got a combination of all 4 layers. One of the things that I'm not really happy with is the color of the light source here is perhaps a little bit bright and a little bit warm for the composite scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the lunar layer and double click to enter that smart object. And again, I'm going to zoom in on Luna in order to get a good idea of what we're trying to edit here. I'm going to come over to the adjustment brush tool, and I'm going to set the temperature at -10 and also the tint at -10, and the exposure will be set at -half a stop. And then just with a soft brush we can see that we're working with the feather and flow and density all set at 100%. I'm just going to paint around the base here just in order to darken that down and also cool the color temperature around Luna's feet there. And I'll select OK to update that. And we might find we're getting a slightly better match now around Luna's feet. Yes, that's a much better color there. If you find that there's probably just still a little bit too much light, we want a more gradual fall off, then we can just select that layer mask, black as the foreground color, 50% opacity, and I'll just increase that size of the brush using that closed square bracket key next to the letter P there, and just fade that in a little bit more gently. Okay, so that's really quite a quick composite, and as you can see we're working with 4 smart objects here, and all of the raw files are embedded in these, so this is a completely non-destructive compositing workflow. What we're going to do now is we're going to finish this up and grade it inside of Adobe Camera Raw, but not one at a time. We're going to actually select all 4 layers. I'm just going to click on the top layer, shift click on the bottom, and then I'm just going to right click and choose Convert to Smart Object. Okay, so we're putting all 4 of these smart objects into a new smart object, and now we're going to go to Filter, and we're going to go to Camera Raw Filter, and this takes the composite file back into Adobe Camera Raw. Let's just zoom in a few times so we can see what we're about to do now. Okay, I want to do some color grading. Okay, so I'm going to come over to the tone curve panel, and I'm going to choose the point curve. Now I'm going to work with the individual channels in order to create a specific sort of color grading. I'm going to create some blue shadows and maybe some warm highlights. I can also go into the green channel to change the nature of that. Now typically when I'm coming into and starting to grade images like this, I usually save presets, and so here I've got myself an ESP grading preset, and you can see that that is the green channel, the blue channel has been modified, and maybe also a little bit in the red channel as well. Okay, if you want to save off a little recipe, then just click on the flyout menu and choose Save Settings from there, and just choose the tone curve setting only. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to, I'll just zoom out so we can see this one, is I'm going to apply a vignette in here. Okay, so we're going to come up to the effects panel, and I'm going to choose color priority, and then take down a nice vignette, perhaps down to quite a heavy one, maybe -50 or so, in order to get a really quite heavy vignette on this image. And then we'll just click OK, and this will update the image. Okay, I'll just zoom out so we can see the final result there. Okay, and you can see that the color grading and vignette inside of Photoshop is all being applied by this Camera Raw filter, and if at any time we want to modify the color grading or vignette, then we can just double click on that Camera Raw filter in order to go back inside of Camera Raw. Okay, and just to show you a before and after, we can click on that visibility icon to show you before the grading and after the grading.